We've been in Afghanistan for 10 years at a cost of over $500 billion. In Iraq for 8 years at a long-term cost of at least $3 trillion. Those who told us the war in Libya would last days now want to extend it for another year at a total cost of billions. It is surreal that we could even be considering authorizing this war at a time when the government is collapsing in debt. Those who told us the war in Libya was to save civilians' lives quickly switched to regime change, with innocent civilians dying from NATO's bombs. Prior to NATO assuming responsibility, we launched hundreds of cruise missiles and dropped tons of bombs on Libya. Since NATO took over, the U.S. has struck from the air at least 90 times, including drone attacks. But these are not hostilities, claims the White House. So what business is it of Congress? We must put an end not only to the war in Libya, but we must put an end to the thinking that the Constitution is a doormat and that our constituents must simply bear the consequences of the misguided policies of this administration without this Congress having any say whatsoever.
I think we have to carry out the UN resolution that calls for the right to protect, or the obligation and duty to protect. That's why the Libyan situation started. That needs to be completed. I would suggest that the Hastings resolution that gives a year is good, in that it provides the necessary restrictions on the White House and on the military in the Libya operation, and basically puts the United States in a support position.
Even the administration says Libya is not a national security risk to America. So why are we at war in Libya? Because the French want us there? Mr. Speaker, don't you think we've done enough for the French in World War I, World War II, and even in Indochina, what we now call Vietnam? The United States should not be involved in Libya's civil war. The cost has been over $700 million to the American taxpayer. Mr. Speaker, don't you think that money, that millions of dollars, could be better spent building America instead of blowing up Libya?
We have an opportunity. The camera of history is rolling. It's watching what we do today. We can authorize the President to continue the limited use of the United States services working in conjunction with NATO today, so that we can show that we're united with our allies. Think about what history will have 50 years from now. We have an individual who was going to massacre his individuals. And by us stepping in, working in conjunction with our NATO allies, we are saving thousands of lives. What would have taken place historically if we allowed the annihilation of the Libyan people?
On June 3rd of this year, by a vote of 268 to 145, the House of Representatives passed a resolution asking the President to make clear what his intentions are in Libya, asking the President to come and consult with Congress, to get Congress's permission to seek our authority to prosecute those hostilities in Libya. We've received some information from the White House since then. We've gotten a letter from the White House since then. We even have classified documents since then. But what we have not had since then, Mr. Speaker, is an opportunity for the American people to make their voice heard on this important issue.
In recent months, people across the Middle East have bravely stood to demand that their government respect their fundamental rights. I've stood with a gentleman from Indiana on behalf of human rights around the world. The Libyan people, who have been subject to the dictatorship of Muammar Gaddafi, who has more blood on his hands, of Americans' blood on his hands, than any other person other than Osama bin Laden in the last 3 decades. The message will go to all the world. The message will go to Muammar Gaddafi. The message will go to our NATO allies. The message will go to every nation of the world that America does not keep faith with its allies. America must lead. We must not equivocate. Such a course would encourage the enemies of peace, the bullies of the world. People around the world look to our country's strength in their struggle for democracy and basic human rights.